Okay. Alrighty. What's up, y'all? It's me, it's your boy, Asmongold, and today I'm joined with Az from Heelvsbabyface to talk about patch 6.2.3. We've kind of had what I believe to be a difference of opinion, so I thought that it'd be cool to have a discussion about the patch announcement. Now, if you guys don't know who Az is, he does videos kind of in the same vein that I do, a lot of WoW discussion videos. Recently, he's been moving into the exploration videos, which have been working out really well for him. And so, Az, if you want to introduce yourself to all the people that are here.
Hi, everybody. That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, alright,
I'm
great.
a man of few words, which is
Yeah.
total lie.
That actually was a few words. So anyway, patch 6.2.3 came out a couple of nights ago. Was it last night? Whenever it came out?
The patch notes officially came out last night, I believe.
Yeah, and so why don't you tell me, I guess like whenever you read them, what did you get out of them?
Well, I just got out of them what I think is the intention of them, which is
Right.
it's just a tiny patch. There's nothing to get particularly excited about. There's a few things which I know some people are gushing over, which I think they need to kind of have a little bit more perspective about.
Right.
But I just see it as I called it a distraction patch in my video that I did on it, because it's another one of these kind of patches where they put something out which doesn't actually contain any content, but kind of distracts you because there's multiple changes to things like gear, and there's extra rewards which are thrown in, and then when you break it all down, you realize the rewards are just for doing stuff which is existing
The
within
same
it.
stuff that we have been doing.
So I kind of called it a little bit of a smoke and mirrors patch, but I don't think it's actually intended to be anything but.
Well, it seems to be obvious to me that the patch is meant to kind of hold people over for Legion, especially with the the Arena Season 3 and adding the Valor points back and adding the item level upgrades, because that's going to kind of provide two different things. Obviously, it'll provide a way to, I guess, like kind of nerf Hellfire Citadel at the same time as like kind of getting people to do mythic dungeons, LFR, all that other stuff. And so really kind of the way that I look at it is that Wards of Draenor, I think, has had more than a problem with content. It's had a problem with incentivization.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at, like, right now, I mean, I think that we talked about this before, and even if we haven't, I'm pretty sure we're on the same page, is that there's really only one way to progress your character and at max level, and that's doing Hellfire Citadel. There's not really anything that you do in Highmaul or in Blackrock Foundry. And so, in a way, like, to me, it seems like if they were to add in, like, something to where you had to do Highmaul, you had to do Blackrock Foundry, and then you had to do Hellfire Citadel, some sort of attunement thing. Now, I'm not really suggesting this to be the case, but by doing that, they would actually create more things for players to do. And I think that Wards of Draenor has had such a problem with incentivizing the content that they've already added into the game, because whenever you hit max level, you've already outdated all of the content that was available on release just a few hours into doing Canon Jungle. And so whenever I see things like this that are being added into the game, it kind of makes me feel better, because there's been, I think, kind of a paradigm shift previously, and I think that we might be moving out of it now, to where Blizzard has kind of made it to where any kind of player, casual or hardcore, can do pretty much everything that they need to do in the game in about maybe 5 to 10 hours of play every week. And if we compare that to Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King, or especially Vanilla, when there's basically a never-ending list of things that you could do, people run out of content really quick. And so whenever I see things like this added, like the Valor points, it is basically just another treadmill for people to spin. But
it is, yeah.
It
but to me, it's an irrelevant treadmill.
we are on the same page there. It is not. This is not necessarily new content. This is actually. No. This is actually new old content that they took away and they're giving us back again.
Yes.
With the example.
with a dress on.
Yeah, and
and a fake mustache.
What it comes down to me, I guess the way that I feel about it is that at least we're getting that. And I don't want to say that in like kind of a way that, I'm like letting them off the hook for how Wards of Draenor has been kind of shitty and everything like that. But it seems to be, especially, with the changes, the time walking dungeons, and I think that the biggest thing to me that we talked about a bit before, which is the mount. And so were you surprised whenever you saw the mount, the store mount for Archimond?
Yeah, I got to confess, I was surprised that they decided to pull it from the store. In the same breath, they couldn't really give themselves too much more bad publicity if they tried, really, could they?
Right, yeah, I mean, that's what I thought. I thought they were like, fuck it, we'll put out another one. How much worse can it get?
Exactly. So in that instance, that I did kind of think, okay, this is quite interesting that they have actually decided. But then we saw this huge campaign, for the Pepe plushie. So it's sort of like, right, you're getting this mount, so now we're going to push the Pepe plushie instead, and that's going to make us the money.
Hey, at least you own the Pepe plushie. Like, you actually own that.
True.
You don't even own the mounts.
No.
You don't even own the mounts. And I mean, like, really, yeah, how much lower could it go? Did you know that the Mystic Runesaber, the like-dislike ratio, is worse than Rebecca Black's Friday? Yeah, dude. That's pretty bad.
How do you work that one out?
What?
How do you work that one out?
Well, if you look at the amount of likes and the amount of dislikes, and then you compare them
to like in that ratio?
The ratio, yeah.
Wow.
It's actually worse. Yeah.
Oh my god, she must be like... I don't know if her voice is breaking at the moment or what, but she must be like so happy to know that.
Yeah, I mean, doing better than a mount in World of Warcraft. I was really surprised to see that too. But
Blizzard haven't been shy this expansion about providing no content, but happy to take your money for different things.
Yeah,
I mean, we got a store mount on release, didn't we? We got the Laughing Skull thing. We got the Laughing Skull.
Oh god!
Leaks. So we had a store mount as soon as Warlords of Draenor went live. Then we got the Mystic Runesaber or the Mythic Runesaber, whatever it's fucking called. I don't care. Then we got that, and that came at the worst possible time for them because people were beginning to get clued into what was happening with Warlords.
Yeah, it wasn't the initial kind of honeymoon period of because at the beginning of the expansion, I think everybody was having fun, doing your garrison stuff. It
had great. So much potential.
It was awesome. It was like a really strong 50 to 100 hours, and then after that, it just petered off, and it felt so much to me.
Hours, but yeah, I mean, the leveling up. I mean,
as a raider, for me,
the leveling up was great. And it had a lot of potential there. You could see the problems with the end game, that it wasn't going to last too long, but you can easily forgive that if they support it.
Right.
So you could easily forgive that if coming off the bat quickly, 6.1 came out and it brought Farrell on and stuff like that. So you're just like, all right, fine. All the jigsaw pieces are still fitting together very nicely, and we're getting a nice little progression thing.
Things are moving along.
Nope, that's not how it went down.
No, it's not, and it's really unfortunate. And I think that really having the mount being moved from the store to the game is, I think, in a lot of ways maybe an apology or a concession to players. That I try to.
Don't know that it's not going to get onto the mount. I mean, there is a few rumblings that this quest chain is going to be only there for a short time.
Yeah.
Oh, 6 months.
It's going to be that's another thing. Yeah, we should talk about that.
And then we'll get on to Warlord Season 3 later. Oh. But it's going to be in the game for a short period of time, and then people are thinking after the quest's been removed that it's going to be pushed onto the store from there. There's no evidence to support that whatsoever.
Absolutely not.
But I think Blizzard. I think people kind of are beginning to wise up to how Blizzard's marketing brain sort of works. So
I don't think that they're going to do that. I think that
I would be surprised if they did. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think it would piss a lot of people off who tried to work their ass off to get them out, and then also at the same time, people wouldn't buy it because it's not unique. A lot of the store mounts, their value is that they're flashy, that they're new,
but there is going to be moose in Legion, so I'm pretty sure we're going to get some basic moose mounts.
But I mean, whenever you consider the fact that this was a store mount, it was probably designed I would assume that a lot of the asset design in Legion is probably already finished or close to finished, so they know what to expect. So if we take previous store mounts, and so I would assume that this one is unique enough to where it would stand out enough from all of the other.
I don't think the other moose are going to have glowing turquoise antlers or anything like this one. stuff.
I don't know, like I try to be optimistic as much as possible. To be honest, I think that a lot of people kind of feel this way. Is that like I was really like glad to see the Legion expansion announcement and everything, but I don't really know how much it's going to really kind of solve of like the real core game problems. And I kind of considered, I guess like them focusing more on like profit rather than the players is like kind of like one of the big problems. And so whenever I see something like this, a change like this, it kind of restores a little bit, actually a lot of my faith in like I guess like where their priorities are.
But as long as it's not a BP type of sorry, because remember we've already had a kind of apology from Ian Hazakostas when he did the Q&A,
right? But
and then 2 weeks later, Corey Stockton went and fucked all that up.
That's true. And I think everybody was glad about the Q&A, and then they did the next interview, and everybody was pissed off again. And that was really disappointing. And I'm sure that they've got to be mad. The people at Blizzard, like at somebody, like either Ian Hazakostas or Corey, or because one of them, because there's got to be like something.
But these people have got to be briefed.
Yeah, exactly.
They have to. Why? So is it the marketing department that's failed, or the public relations, whatever it seems to me that there is a missing link department here that is mucking up on a royal fashion.
Yeah, and so I think that the PR has definitely been definitely not on their side recently, and at least with the interview, the Ian Hazakostas thing, he kind of basically said we're sorry, but didn't really talk about a whole lot of real changes that were going to happen. It didn't really seem, but this is actually this is in the patch notes, like this is actually happening rather than just an apology like, oh, we're sorry. It's like we're sorry and this is what's going to happen because of it. You know what I mean? And so it's actually action instead of words, which really, there have been a lot of words. There were a lot of words, like as you like to say, at BlizzCon 2013. And a lot of those words never really make it to reality. But it's always good to see, something like this happen where it actually does happen to be, in depth. Yeah,
we could take it as apology. Sure, you got to work for it. I ain't got a problem with that. It's a nice mount. You should be able to work for it without having to go through an awful grinding system.
Yeah.
You got to kill a boss on a difficult level of difficulty.
Right.
You get a quest chain. I don't imagine the quest chain is going to be particularly long.
Oh no.
But you're going to get some small little quest chain that's attached to it, and then at Moonglade they're going to give you this moose mount, and I think that's a decent way. This is what I say about this is why it kind of like gets my goat about store mounts and people going, yeah, but it's only cosmetic, and he just like, well, look at content which can be created around that as the ultimate reward.
Well, that's the thing, is
and this is the thing, exactly what we have here. A piece of content has been created around this individual mount.
Well, I always use the example of how many people run Utgard Pinnacle every single day for the Blue Proto Drake, and then how many people do you think run Utgard Keep? Nobody.
Yeah.
And so these mounts do create
They're all
content.
Upstairs,
people
not
kill the
downstairs.
Lich King every single week for Invincible. They don't kill him for
like
fun.
me.
You haven't got it yet?
I haven't got it yet. No. No,
So,
I don't know how many kills I've got under my belt. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But I did get the mount from the Throne of the Four Winds this week, though.
Oh, the Drake of the South Wind.
Yeah. It's
very rare.
It's a lovely looking mount.
Yeah, it's definitely the best looking Storm Drake that there is. And that's why you're killing out here. You're doing it for the mount. You're not just doing it for fun, because that fight is really fucking annoying. And it's the tornadoes and everything. So obviously, like a lot of these, these things, and like that's kind of the way that I feel about the time walking, the new time walking mount too, is that it kind of gives people a new incentive to go back into the time walking dungeons and do them, without really adding a whole lot of actual new content, but incentivizing old content that people didn't really do. And so it's kind of like a win-win for them. Look,
I know they've attached this infinite Drake to the time walking dungeons.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't alter the fact that time walking is abysmal, because time walking is abysmal. It's not. I don't think it's turned out anyway how it's meant to have turned out.
I think honestly,
it's not nostalgia trip. It's not difficult. There isn't any communication. They haven't changed any mechanics of the fights. You know, to me, it feels so pedestrian, and it's not an enjoyable piece of content. I think a lot more work should have gone into time walking, and it could have been released as something pretty interesting.
What do you think they could have done?
Well, I did a video. I did a video on it a long time ago about how I think with time walking, a proper reputation system should have been done around it, and we
with the infinite dragon fight.
Well, yeah, I mean, Chromie, because she was stuck with us on
right.
you know, this side. She was saying because we fractured the timeline, you know, things are going a bit weird. So you'd actually enter a dungeon, a time walking dungeon, and let's say they're all Burning Crusade ones. You'd fight your way to the first boss. You'd defeat your first boss. After the first boss was defeated, instead of progressing further, a huge portal would open up in front of you. You'd click onto the portal, it'd zap you through to another Burning Crusade dungeon and another area where you fight your way to the boss. So it kind of kept it all a bit random and all this kind of stuff. And you know, the object was to get to the final boss, and then you would sort of like seal that timeline. That timeline would be sealed, and the way that you'd show that it's been sealed is you'd actually have like a meta achievement, which would show which bosses had been systematically crossed off from the you know, the past, so to speak. So because it was all random, sure, it's an RNG element, but at least it keeps every dungeon different that you go into. And you could operate off a system of it having 4 dungeons and the final 4 bosses, the final one being the 4th. And then when you defeat the final boss, there's actually like a 15% chance or something that it would open up a portal to go through to a 5th and potentially different boss altogether. So it's just like to try and add some difference to just instead running bog standard old dungeons by simply downgrading HPs and damages, and because of the fact that back in places like the Burning Crusade, we were utilizing CCs and all this kind of thing to go through dungeons. Right. So to not utilize them in this manner defeats the whole object of those dungeons. So that's why it just feels so pedestrian. And I've seen you on a video where you've been in a time walking dungeon and you've died, but you've died because you're running to your 8th pack in a row and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't see that as being fun. I can't find that fun in my content. So time walking to me has just been a big
I haven't really minded them adding it into the game. I didn't really expect it to be like some kind of new and like amazing thing. I think it would be cool if they did add like what you're saying with like the infinite dragon fight and everything like that, a reputation. And like we kind of have that now with the tokens that you can have and like buy stuff with time walking badges and all. But yeah, I mean, it is really kind of, for the most part, pointless outside of the weekly quest.
And my biggest concern is when you're using old content to substitute for new content in your game. That's just all wrong. That is all wrong. I would throw away every single time walking dungeon that we've got right now to have some fresh new dungeons and to have some fresh new content, Farallon or whatever it may be. I think Blizzard have this over-reliance, or certainly you're showing an over-reliance now on just bringing in older content to substitute for
recycling.
To substitute for putting something fresh and new into the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can both agree that, I mean, it's been a real big disappointment in Mists of Pandaria and now again in Worlds of Draenor that we don't have new catch-up dungeons. I will kind of, in a way, say that for a lot of people that haven't been playing for as long as we have, it actually is their first time doing Ramparts. It's going to be their first time doing Grim Batal or Stonecore, because you just don't really do those dungeons. You don't need to do them while you're leveling anymore, especially if you just get the boost. Like, you probably never have even been into Magister's Terrace, if you're a player that started in the past, 2 years. You know what I mean?
Possibly because Magister's Terrace has got a mount, but I get the theory behind it. I get the theory behind it.
Yeah, like Lost City at 12 years, one of the new ones that they're adding. Like, there's no real reason to go in there. And so now, because they've added this, this time.
But I don't know about you. I mean, you tell me if this is not the way that you feel about this. But when I kind of get strong enough to go into a dungeon like that on my own, I actually get more out of it than if I was doing it in a time walking situation with other people. Because I can just go into it. I can go at my own pace. I can appreciate the architecture. I can appreciate the construction of the dungeon. I can, explore, have a look around the place, see where I can go, see where I can't go, and I get much more out of that being stronger and going into an older dungeon on my own than I do doing a time walking dungeon with other people, and we're literally running through it in 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and then we're out, and I'm just thinking that what was that?
I think that's kind of another aspect, and it's like kind of something that's separate but also kind of affects time walking dungeons, and it's affected all dungeons now, is that dungeons like used to be based on like could you complete this dungeon, and now it's how fast can you complete it. Every dungeon is a speed run, and like so all dungeons are also, they're not really built around being expansive, like BRD. I mean, like I still probably don't know how to get around all through BRD. I mean, it's huge, and it's not that you're not meant to speed run that fucking dungeon. And if you are, that's going to be a 3-hour speed run. And now everything is very streamlined, and we have that because of challenge modes, of course. Blizzard is saying that they might not add challenge modes into Legion. I don't really know how to feel about that, but if they make
I don't think they're hugely popular. I think the kind of effort put into a challenge mode and a reward system around challenge mode compared to the actual number of people that do it,
I think that honestly a lot of people like to do challenge modes, and probably for the amount of effort that it takes to actually make one, it's definitely worth their time, especially if they can incentivize it well enough, like they did with Warlords of Draenor, with Mists of Pandaria.
I haven't seen a whole lot of people. Oh, there again, I haven't seen a whole lot of people in Warlords of Draenor, period. But I haven't seen a whole lot of people. And honest to God, I swear on my life here, I can't recall seeing a single solitary person with the weapon transmog.
Really? I see him all the time on Kel'Thuzad.
Really. Maybe, I don't know. I'm on the EU, you're on the US and stuff, but I could be because of the population of the server. Like I said, my server's when I joined my server, it was a high populated server. Now it's just like.
Yeah, that might have something to do with it. Like, I see a lot of people with the transmog around and, in the city and everything. But it's definitely not as popular as the Mists of Pandaria one, because you got an entire gear set, you got the mount, you got the title. Yes. Like, it was much more lucrative. And also, I think challenge modes were kind of easier in Mists of Pandaria as well. And so all of those things kind of put together, I think that's why people did more challenge modes then than they do now. But, if they did remove challenge modes, one good thing about that, not saying that it would be a good thing or a bad thing, one good thing would be that they could possibly try and move away from that, Zerg mindset that everybody has with doing dungeons, and kind of let people sit back and, make things really, really hard again. And, especially with probably adding in mythic dungeons, because,
I would like to see that. I can't see that coming in, because the argument, I think, will always be from the person that says, I can only play for 1 hour a night, I don't want to be spending 50 minutes in a dungeon.
Yeah, I know. It's just,
which is a shame.
It really is. Like, I mean, I remember when I wasn't able to play for more than really an hour or two a night, and it seemed to me like I always really got more out of trying rather than just being rewarded regardless. How some dungeons, or really all dungeons now, are based on, and like, the pre-made group finder and everything like that, ever since Wrath of the Lich King, I think, there's been a transition to where it's not really about, like exploring the dungeon or finding like cool new things, about how, how there used to be tons of like optional bosses. It's like if you do like all of the old like vanilla dungeons, you see like all these like bonus objectives and bonus things that you can do.
Well, and, even into was it Wrath of the Lich King that had Culling of Stratholme? Was it Cataclysm that had Culling of Stratholme?
It was Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah,
and
you
were able
if you
to
did it within time periods, you opened up the Bronze Drake, or the boss that dropped the Bronze Drake and stuff, timed event.
Yeah, I mean, little things like that are cool, and things that are outside of, like, kind of like timed events, I think, can really make people enjoy it more. And hopefully in Legion, I hope that they move away from doing, like, these automatic, queuing systems, and allowing people to kind of, like, make their own groups, so they can, like, move at their own pace, and explore the dungeon, and make it more difficult, and also, in turn, more rewarding. You know? And so that's kind of like one thing that I am really glad to see with these changes, is that they are making more of a emphasis on dungeons, because I think that really in Wards of Draenor, it's just been so raid centric. Like anything you have, like as a raider, like for me, like there's nothing that I can really do to advance my character that's not in Hellfire Citadel. And so, except for those 4 hours that happen 3 times a week, you know, there's nothing I can do to help my own character.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing, no reputation I can farm, nothing I can do that like kind of helps anything at all.
Yeah.
And I think that that's bad design.
Yeah, very much so. But in the same instance, though, that's the problem which people who don't even raid this experience have found, because the content outside of raiding hasn't been engaging at all.
They don't even have the 4 hours. They don't even have the 4 hours. That's why, I mean, like, it's like you think about it, I will be surprised if subscription numbers have not further gone down in this next subscriber call. Honestly, I think that they will continuously go down. And, you know, I mean, it was at 44%. So even if they go down 6%, that's like every other person that was in, you know, Stormwind, that was in Storm Shield or whatever, you know, 6-9 months ago isn't there anymore. And I mean,
if it hits 5 million, 1 in 2 people have left the game since beginning of January.
Yeah, 50%. I mean,
that's a lot of people.
And so I think that a lot of that does come down to like really
that's worse than the leftovers by a mile.
Yeah, I mean, it's been disappointing for everybody, and so to see them moving away from things that have to do, you know, because they put so much work into these raids. I mean, like you've done Hellfire Citadel, right?
I did it on the PTR.
Okay, so you know how fucking good that raid is. Like that
I know. I thought Highmaul was awesome. I loved Highmaul. I thought
Highmaul was amazing.
Highmaul was amazing. Constructed raid.
I didn't the only thing I didn't like is it seemed kind of disjointed between the first 4 bosses and the last 3. But I kind of felt that way with Ulduar in the same way, but not really as much with that teleporter, you know?
But I think it was kind of disjointed in as much as there was a serious ramp up from boss 6 to boss 7.
Yeah.
I mean, a serious ramp up. And
especially on Heroic.
And I think they showed almost the physical distance between the two. You had to go quite far.
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah.
Boss 6 to boss 7. There was a lot of physical trash and quite hard trash to get through. I mean, you know, you were hitting fucking Hero and Bloodlust and stuff on that trash before you got to the Imperator and things like that. So, there was a big distance physically between those 2 bosses as well that could be felt when you tackled them.
That's a good way to look at it. I'd never thought of that. And but I mean, whenever you think about these raids are incredible. Like BRF, really well put together. I love that raid. You know, Highmaul, amazing. Hellfire Citadel, incredible. And obviously, they put so much work and so much effort into these raids that it would be stupid for them not to kind of funnel everybody into them and make sure that everybody gets to see the stuff that they put all this work into. You know what I mean? And
well, I mean, that's what they're clearly trying to do with LFR, isn't it?
Yeah. Everybody goes to the raid. You know, and I think it's kind of a problem in itself whenever you make a non-raiders in-game raiding. You know, like there are a lot of people who don't enjoy raiding. You know what I mean? And so whenever you do that, it's like, what's this person going to do? They have to do the thing that they don't like to do. It's like in the past, there's always been other ways to advance your character, and now at least you know, the Tannin jungle gear is better, and the gear from Mythic Dungeons is going to be.
But the Tannin gear now is going to get a complete RNG makeover though in 6.2.
Well, see, that's another thing. I was actually gonna I think I talked to you about you know, getting you know, me, you, and Mike together and talking about the RNG in the game.
Yeah.
Oh my, yeah, we'll have to do that sometime because it's really incredible. Like instead of, because I thought about like really why are they doing this? And back in the day, you didn't really get items very often. It was very rare for you to actually get an upgrade and actually get an item. You know, back then, like, bosses only dropped like 2 or 3 items. Now they drop like 6, and you bonus roll them. And so people would complete the content extremely quickly if they didn't have those RNG elements. And I really hate them. You know, like, I absolutely hate the RNG elements. And so they add, you know, it's like kind of a shower of gear. It's like, have you played D3?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, like, I mean, it's like a golden shower.
Yeah, it's a gear bukkake going on there.
Yeah, you get a ton of them, and you know, they're all trash, but it's still kind of getting people, you know, like that reward. You know, keep rewarding them, and you know, I think that that's kind of what's happening in WoW too. And so they're just giving you more and more and more gear, and if they were giving you perfectly itemized gear, from the start, like people will be done playing their character in like in D3. Like for me, like I basically got towards almost best in slot. I mean, not really almost, but like 90% there, in like maybe 30 or 40 hours of playing. And for a game that kind of their business model is to keep people playing, they add in these RNG elements, and I just wish that they would go back to maybe giving people fewer rewards but making the rewards count. Or
of course, Diablo differs greatly in the fact that it doesn't hold a monthly subscription fee.
Right, exactly.
And of course, Blizzard want people to stay on the game with the monthly subscription fees.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you put 30 hours into Warlords of Draenor and were 90% of the way to best in slot, the impetus to carry on might not be there. So now we're just getting so many extreme levels of RNG.
Yeah.
That I think Blizzard are on the hope that I this is why I called it the delay patch, because to me I just see it as another delay tactic. Instead of getting a 650, a 675, or a 695 Baleful, now it's 655, 660, 665, 670, 675, 680. There are so many different permeations of what you can get between them that there's suddenly that's 695 that you could obviously use your item for. You don't have to use that 20,000 Apexis crystal thing for. You can just play the roulette machine. You can play the slot machine every time a piece of baleful gear drops and see what number it's going to chime between 655 and 695 in increments of 5.
That's been something, like, I'll kind of give you, like, my perspective on that, is, like, as a raider, like, my goal every tier has always been to reach best in slot. In Dragon Soul, I did it. In Siege of Orgrimmar, I did it, outside of the tusks, of course. And in, I think, like, maybe other, one other time I did it, but, like, usually at the end tier I was able to do it. Now, I don't even have really that incentive to do it, because I know it's statistically impossible for me to get all of the items that I want, have it be Warforged, and have a socket, and that's not even counting a tertiary.
But don't you feel as if Blizzard are trying to remove that glass ceiling? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to remove that element of the likelihood you're going to get best in slot, because they're just desperate. Again, they're desperate for the returning player to say, can I get that Warforged tertiary?
Yeah, it's like there's, for me personally, it's actually like the amount of reward that I'd feel getting, let me think of like a weapon, like Girthalak. Like the first time I got heroic Girthalak, well, the only time, because I only need one, but whenever I got it, like I felt fucking awesome, right? And it felt the same way that whenever I got the Mythic Warforged Blast Furnace Axe. And so it's not like I'm not getting that same reward. It's that the chance of me getting the reward for the heroic Girthalak was like 8%, but the chance for me getting the reward for the mythic Blast Furnace Axe is 0.8%. And so there's just less chance for me to actually be rewarded. And so if you get something that's not the Mythic Warforged, it's like, well, this is okay, but it could be better. You know what I mean? So
but if it drops and you don't get the Mythic Warforged, then there's got to be a part in your brain that just says, well, that ain't going to go drop then, is it? Here's my chance of it dropping. It's not come through. I'm going to have to wait another 10, 12 weeks maybe to have another crack at this. 6, 7 weeks, have another crack at this.
I don't really see a purpose in playing a game that you can't win, and I consider collecting my best in slot and getting the best gear in the game and being able to compete with other players for like the best logs and everything like that part of beating the game for me. And whenever you make beating the game statistically impossible, basically, there's no point to even play. There's no point to even try, to even play.
I like an element of certain things being an RNG element. Like, I used to love playing, this is going back a decade, more than a decade. I used to love playing Phantasy Star Online when it came out for the Dreamcast and it came out for the GameCube. And the reason why is when you were looking at your physical gear, like your your armor and things like that, and your mag, which was like your pet, you could upgrade them and you could get a drop that would give you the best of the best. Not massively difficult, sure, bit of RNG and stuff like that, a lot of RNG and stuff like that, but when you got it, it was locked in. the thing with the Phantasy Star Online was going for the weapons, and the fact that when you found a weapon, it was kind of like, I think the way Diablo does it, you get a question mark. You don't know what the stats are going to be.
Yeah, you have to identify.
So yeah, you would take your item back to an identification guy or gal, and they would identify it and say, well, I think it's this. But if you had like a better rep with them or something like that, I'm trying to rack my brain a decade, so do forgive if details are out. If you went to like a different one that maybe had more of affinity with your race or stuff like that, they could potentially give you like a better deal, saying, well, actually, I think it's got these stats on it.
Oh, like a higher chance of it being like better.
And then if you see one that you like, you just like, right, take it, and then you take it, and then it identifies it, and it's still not a guarantee then, but then at least you get your cast iron stats for that item. And I thought that was quite a fun thing to do, to see those red squares in those days, those kind of like red squares drop from whatever it may be, trash, bosses, rare mobs which would spawn, and then identifying them was awesome. So in WoW, sure, what's wrong with getting like best in slot chest and arms and legs and shoulders and stuff like that, and then kind of putting a little bit of RNG element in for weaponry, for trinkets, stuff like that. So you have got X percent, 60, 70% of best in slot through just hard work, which you've done through time spent in the game, which I believe you should be rewarded for, versus the kind of the reaching element of, I could get the weapon that I want and I can get X stats with it or Y stats with it. But then again, WoW is so kind of the secondary stats for WoW have become so kind of powerful that would probably fuck the whole balance of the game.
Well, I think that what it really, because they interface so much with every single different spell. Like critical strikes do certain things, and so they are more important. I think that really what I don't like about the whole Warforged, tertiary, and socketed aspects, and just the whole RNG thing entirely, and this does tie into one of the changes that they're making, which is the I guess like the reward changes in not only the 10 and jungle rares and all that stuff, but also mythic dungeons, where you can get all the way up to 725 now. What I don't really like is that,
which is a big leap.
It's fucking huge. It's better than the first, I think, 4 bosses in Hellfire Citadel.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. I don't really, what I don't really like about it is it's just random. And so what I don't like is
that's Hellfire Citadel
Mythic
Mythic
Hellfire Citadel, because Mythic Hellfire Assault drops item level 720 gear, and so that means that Mythic, you can get better gear in a Mythic dungeon than you can in Mythic Hellfire Citadel. And it would be one thing if the difficulties were comparable, but they are not. Doing and like just getting the 20 people together is more difficult than doing the entire Mythic fucking dungeon. So what I don't like is I can't Warforge an item. I can't add a socket to an item. I can't add a tertiary stat to an item. There's nothing that I can do to combat this RNG.
But that's a failing for professions as well, though.
That's the thing. That's what I really hope that they do in Legion, is add in things like, you remember how they had like the Spirit of War in Siege of Orgrimmar?
Yeah.
If they had something like that, where like you occasionally loot these items, and like maybe you get one a week, or you get one a month, or there's some sort of thing that you can do to put these things together from the bosses, like kind of like badges, and you put like 10, I don't know, like Hellfire Citadel badges together, and you can find an item, or like make an item, and it can Warforge, or like blacksmiths can make it, and like they forge it, sell it on the auction house, and or maybe you can't sell it on the auction house, maybe it's just for that person and they can only apply it. I don't know the specifics, of course, and then you can take this item and apply it to an item that you have, and it will Warforge the item. And I had always thought that would be an amazing way to integrate professions into raiding, is make, blacksmithing to where you can warforge items, inscription to where you can add tertiaries, and jewel crafting, of course, to where you can add sockets. I mean, that would honestly, and make them really hard to get. And so there's an actual, because to me, I don't have fun playing a slot machine. I don't enjoy it. Once I'll play it for a while with Diablo 3, I'll have a good time, and once I realize I'm about 90% there, I know statistics. No, the other 10% is going to take 90%. Is going to take 90% of the time. And you're just never going to get there. So, like I don't know. I think that that's something that they really could do. And
but this is why I keep calling it a distraction patch, because they're not adding any new content to the game. They're not going to add any new content.
They're adding the mounts.
It's not new
mount
content.
does create content, though. I mean,
there's
like,
a difference.
as we were saying,
it's not a playable. We're not playing anything new. We're playing all the same old stuff. There's just a couple of new rewards being added to it, but they still want to give the illusion of progression. So that's why they're upping the Mythic Dungeons RNG. Right. That's why they're changing the Baleful RNG, because they need to have this, and that's why you can upgrade your items by 5 levels 2 times over.
Well, that will be very important, for raiding, especially in like Hellfire Citadel. Like most people, they just hit a wall on a certain boss, like Mythic Gorefiend. Mythic Archimond is a huge one. Mythic Manaroth. And like they just can't really get past that wall, and especially for guilds that are in normal mode and they can't kill a normal Archimond, there's no way for them to get the ring upgrades, which kind of function as like a static nerf or a progressive nerf. There's no way. So they just hit the wall and they can't move forward at all, and there's nothing that they can really do. So adding in these item upgrades, like I've always like the item upgrade system has probably been one of my favorite things that they've added into the game. Really kind of at all. I really like the idea of like investing and building gear. And so, having them add that back into the game is, really great for me. And I think it will help people move forward in Hellfire Citadel and at least have something to where they can say, well, next week we can come back stronger and we'll have a better chance. And it keeps them going. It keeps them trying. And, really kind of with all this stuff, like what we said at the beginning, is that Wards of Draenor has had more than a content problem, an incentivization problem. And so by adding these incentives, they're kind of creating content out of what really never really was content. Like there was no real reason for people to do Mythic Dungeons. And so making them drop this really good gear, which I'm not really a big fan of, but it still does. I'm just not a fan of it because it's random. If like you had to do like Warforged Mythic Dungeons or something like that, and they were just really, really hard, it would be awesome, right? Or especially if they were new dungeons. And,
but then what do you do? I mean, if somebody is doing Mythic Dungeons and they're not raiding, it doesn't matter diddly squat whether they're wearing item level 700 or 725.
Well, of course it does.
Why would it not matter? I mean, it's going to be a status symbol for them, but that's going to be it.
Because what are the mounts for? What are titles for? It's all. That's the thing, is like almost all the rewards in the game are all they're all cosmetic. And now, I mean, like we've moved so much from. It's like I remember people didn't even really care about the Scarab Board mount. Like whenever, because we had a guy that lost it by just a couple hours in our guild. Yeah. It's like, whatever, it's just a mount. It's not like actual gear. And now, I mean, like, somebody'd probably fucking kill themselves over that. And
they must have a terrible life if they do.
Well, I mean, it's a really nice mount too. And so, I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, there are all these cosmetic rewards, and, it's all about kind of, like, feeling like you're progressing yourself and giving people these mounts and, like, having people get better gear and stuff like that. That does give them the feeling of progression. What do you think about them adding Valor back?
Well, it's not used for much. It's just to upgrade your gear. I sort of look at it a wee bit from a cynical point of view, actually, because it's like people want Valor back, and it's just like, so we're just going to make Valor be used for upgrading gear and nothing else. So far. I mean, we don't really know entirely. Well, they could tweak stuff, but if they were going to bring back Valor, I would have liked to have seen it being brought back. Sure, you can use it to upgrade gear, but I would have liked to have seen a separate quartermaster for Valor to make it feel as if it was becoming a full-on separate entity, like a currency that you can buy gear with. As opposed to almost like what I would describe as a placebo. Because I would honestly be surprised if they didn't add anything else to spend the Valor points on. Just to have them sitting there doing nothing. Because that's what happened to Mists of Pandaria. So I mean, it's not unprecedented. It's just I don't think that's what they're gonna do. But with Mist, Valor was used for other stuff. and then they
But,
just
I
stop
mean, not
putting it in.
functionally though. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because I was going through like all my Burning Crusade screenshots. That's why I keep bringing back to that. Is I remember they added these. It was like a Valor or no Justice Point gear back then, and they made it 141, which is the equivalent of Black Temple gear. And so they had continuously upgraded the Valor gear, or the Justice Point gear throughout the expansion.
Yeah,
And it would be really nice if they could do that with Legion as well.
well, that's.
So
I mean,
people
I liked the Valor
Yeah.
Point Justice Point system. I liked it. I
Yeah,
thought
I
I
did
thought
too.
it worked well. I thought it had a proper design behind it. It felt good to get the Valor points as opposed to the Justice points, because you felt as if you're getting a superior currency to get superior stuff. So there's also some psychological kind of connotations behind it as well.
What's it? You're always working towards something. You kill a
Yeah.
boss, the item doesn't drop, but you get Valor.
But with the way that they're implementing Valor currently, it just feels nothing like. It just feels like a placebo. Just
No, and
people
that
want
is
Valor,
that is
here's
a problem. You're right. That is a problem, and I do hope that they add more uses for Valor, specifically being able to buy gear from vendors like you used to be able to.
Yeah. If you're
Period.
going to put Valor in, make it proper. Don't do a half-assed job like the whole of Warlords. Do it properly. Put other things surrounding it. You know, even if it's toys, amount, whatever. Even if it's gear. Just but obviously you've got all the Apexis stuff surrounding the Baleful stuff, so you'd have to have something different. Maybe even transmoggy stuff. You know,
Well,
but
since
just
they're making the Valor points from Mythic Dungeons, Heroic Dungeons, and like LFR, it seems like they will be kind of difficult to get. And
we
so
don't know
could
how
maybe-
much they're going to produce, do we? We don't know how many.
No, we have no. We don't even know if there's a cap on it. I hope that there's not really a cap, in the same way that there wasn't a cap for Justice Points back in the day. But there'd just be kind of like a soft weekly cap, because you can only do Mythic Dungeons each week, once. And same as like you can only do a Heroic Dungeon once a week. And so I hope that they don't cap it. But
even if they do cap it, I talked to a friend of mine recently who doesn't play the game anymore, and we were just talking about Justice points and Valor points.
Right.
And he said to me, it was always good, he said, getting Valor points, because even if I capped out at 1,000 for the week or whatever it was, and I couldn't purchase anything with that, he said, I always knew next week I'd be able to buy something. So I always knew every 2 weeks I'd be able to buy myself a really good piece of gear, cool piece of gear that would give me a boost. So, it felt important. It felt as if it had a proper usage.
Well, that you're moving forward. Like, and that's what I was saying earlier about how, like, you kill a lot of bosses, and usually the item that you want doesn't drop. Usually that's the way it goes. But every time you get Valor, and so you knew that's like two Valor patches, or like 40 Valor or whatever it is, and so you know that you're working towards something, and you're going to get it eventually.
So if you weren't getting drops, at least you could purchase something.
At least you're getting Valor, and so there's always a reason to go into those dungeons and do them.
Yeah.
And like, so adding the Valor back to the game, I think, can incentivize all of this content that basically nobody fucking cares about. And it's disappointing because, as I said, they've just outdated all of their own content. Like 6.2 outdated everything that was added in Words of Draenor before 6.2. And so like it's like a guy made a comment on one of my videos, and he said something really smart that I've always remembered. Is he said that the way that they handle things now is that we don't play the expansion, we play the patch.
Yes,
and now.
But we used to play the expansion.
And that's the thing, is that now they have all these catch-up mechanisms that just bypass all of the old raids, all of the old.
You can hit level 100 right now and go straight into Tanaan. 6.2.3. It's just what it is. It's a small, tiny patch. It isn't reinventing the wheel. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think it's just trying to. The people who are still sticking around, that 1 in 2 people that are still sticking around, it's trying to just pretend they have a progression system.
Well, it is giving them a progression system.
It is giving.
Let's be real. I mean, like, the Valor points, adding the Valor points into the game and giving people the item upgrades is giving them a progression system. That's exactly what they're doing, right?
A tenuous one.
What do you mean? Well, I mean, like, what would you,
if you're like me, I'm item level 700, right?
Okay.
So, if I was to look at playing 6.2.3,
okay,
I would only be progressing through the 5 level upgrades times 2, and through doing, I believe, mythic dungeons.
Yes.
If I wanted to, I could do Time Walker dungeons in an attempt to get the mount that they're sticking in. But would I, if I was unsubscribed from the game, would I look at that as a rule of thumb as an incentivization to do it? No.
To resubscribe?
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as incentivization at all to resubscribe. I would just
maybe for some people it would be, but I think that people that it would be is very minor. You're right.
Yeah.
And I mean, this isn't a major patch. You know, even though this is bigger than our first major patch, patch 6.1. But it's still,
that was a huge patch.
Yeah, I got two major patches.
Huge. Yeah.
I mean, like this is adding some things into the game, and just by adding these valor points, it does create a progression system. And it's the same with adding the mythic dungeon like item stuff. Like, I fucking hate the RNG stuff, but it will at least give people a reason to run mythic dungeons, you know. And it's the same with having that moose from Heroic Archimon. Like, it's the same as the Kol'Karan Warwolf. People were trying to get that thing like on the last day. You know, and like that's what people are going to be doing. And I do think that it will incentivize, you know, like heroic guilds. Like, it's not going to incentivize some LFR player probably that never is raided before to go and like join a raiding guild and get logs and everything. No, it's just too much. But it will encourage people to make that next step.
But I think it's only going to potentially encourage existing players who aren't going to leave the game or, you know, are currently subscribed. It ain't going to bring anyone back.
No, I don't really think that it would. I mean, it might bring some people back. Some people might say, oh, hey, you know, it might be cool to do the Cataclysm Time Walking Dungeons, get this mount, and might pay $15 to play for, you know, a week or two. Sure, that might happen, but I do agree with you. This isn't like, oh my god, all this new stuff to come back to the game for, like 6.2 was. Like, 6.2 did bring a lot of stuff into the game for people to do. You know, like Tannin Jungle, the Baleful Gear, a new raid, and all that. But
this is why they've rightfully called it 6.2.3 and not...
Yeah, it's not 6.3.
Yeah. Because it's just a little bit of something.
Yeah, and, you know, adding a new arena season.
A little bit of no content.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's higher numbers, bigger numbers, and, you know, more things for people to progress on. And I think that really, the only thing why I'm really glad about this patch and what makes me happy about it is that it seems to be indicative of a paradigm shift with the you know, the Valor system, and also with the store mount being added into the.
I think it's way too early to call that. I think it's way too early to call that, because
that's why I said it indicates.
All of that could be nipped in the bud right here. That could all be said as, you know, we've given them what they want. That's it. I think we're going to find out whether or not it's a paradigm shift when we start to see the Legion content. Then we're going to find out if it's ongoing or if it is
No, you're entirely right. I mean, there's of course this proves it. No, of course not. But it's a step in the right direction. And you know, with so many missteps that have happened, just a step in the right direction, or really kind of two, I guess, if you want to add the Valor and the Grove Warden here, that's heartening, you know. And if the Legion just continues with bullshit, then it would have already happened. You know what I mean? That would have happened anyway. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But yeah. Way too early. That's why I've called it a distraction patch, because I think it's way too early to call anything.
Well, it's a kind of a maintenance patch in a way, like maintaining current subscribers, keeping people with something to do, moving the carrot a little bit further away, giving people a little bit more progression, and that's what honestly, that's what I want them to do. I want them to give us more stuff to do, more stuff to build your character up.
They need to give us new stuff, is what they need to give us.
But they're not going to do that in a.
You know, I said at the end of my video yesterday, you add 6.1 to 6.2 to 6.2.2 to 6.2.3, you've got yourself probably one patch.
Yeah. So again, I guess I don't know, like your closing thoughts. Patch 6.2.
Yeah, it's 6.2.3. It's what Blizzard have said it is. It's a small patch. It's lip service to the people that are still here. I don't think it's going to pull anyone back in. No. You know, even with its couple of mount rewards, I don't think people who've left the game are going to feel as if it's justifying returning. And I just think it's placebo. It's just trying to bung a hole, or at least try and patch a hole of spilling subs.
Yeah, that's hopefully what it'll do, and we'll see. I think that the only thing that I'm really glad about is that what it really indicates, what it could indicate, as we talked about, what it could indicate for the future, in terms of the store mounts and more character investment with the Valor points.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, hopefully that continues, but we'll see if it happens in the Legion. But anyway, guys, it's actually been very long. I probably should cut this down a little bit.
Quite.
But either way, I don't know why I'm telling you that, because they will already have seen the cut version. Yeah, it's pretty late. Yeah. I'm tired. So, thanks for watching. And again, this is with Az from Heelvsbabyface, and I'll have a link to his channel in the description so you guys can check out his content as well. But for now, that's pretty much all I got. So, thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.